most pitchers don't have any idea why they're getting lit up. To a white belt hitter, that kind of stuff would work very well because they're not trained.
Well, then why wouldn't a pitcher just throw more 1 and 4s, like off inside and like a curveball or changeup?
Wherever you throw the ball, it's going to have a different reaction time to the hitter.
You had a father who wanted to train their son to play baseball. How would you train them starting at like an age 6 or 7? In a simple way, just describing what effective velocity is. You're saying a cutter would work better if it went more inside. Is there anyone you've considered that has a black belt? Like, do you have an example?
What separates elite from just average isn't just strength, it's vision, it's decisions, it's the brain actually behind the game. I'm Dr. Akash Shah, and this is NeuroVision Edge Podcast, where science meets elite performance. And each week, we'll sit down with the top minds in coaching, performance, and neuroscience to break down that invisible edge behind elite play. If you're a serious athlete, coach, or even parent looking for that competitive edge, this is your new playbook. Get real, practical, actionable insights that you can apply on the field, in the cage, or on the court today. NeuroVision Edge, where science meets elite performance. Are you ready to unlock your edge? Let's jump in.
Today on NeuroVision Edge, I'm excited to welcome the one and only Perry Husband, former college World Series MVP, scholar of hitting mechanics, and one of the leading voices behind effective velocity and modern pitch recognition. Perry has authored time training hitting series and pioneered tools like tubing, plyometrics, launch angle, and exit velocity revolution. And his work has helped hitters from Carlos Pena, who led the AL in homers, and NCAA softball champions, I believe Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
To their timing and recognition skill. And that's the key component here, is the elevation of timing and the recognition skill. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about. And his mission has always been clear, is to show hitters and pitchers what's the best technique from high school to college and pro level, using visual timing and perceived pitch speeds to separate the average from the elite. So here to break it down, Perry Husband, the mic is all yours.
All right. Well, that was a great introduction. Thank you. So yeah, we can start wherever you would like. I think the key element is,
we might have some people who are not familiar with effective velocity. Do you mind, in a simple way, just describing what effective velocity is and why that's so important?
effective velocity is basically it's the definition of how deception and timing work. Deception for timing in the sport of baseball and softball, timing is everything, literally everything. And for pitchers, that is all based around deception. So if you are deceptive, then it makes it harder for people to recognize the pitches. Therefore, it makes it harder to time them. And so you mess up timing by having great deception. And for hitters, they have to figure out, first off, what is timing? Most people don't even know. They talk about it a lot, but they really haven't taken that deep dive to truly understand what hitting's all about and what timing is all about. Because timing is a bunch of things. It's first off, there's a set of body timing, like a golfer, right? They have just their set of movement patterns. And when that's right, everything's right because the ball just sits there. But in baseball, the ball's moving at you, but you still have all these moving parts that you have to connect on time. So you have to get your body timing right. And then you have to connect that body timing to the timing of the pitch. And the pitch is very deceptive because at the ABCs of effective velocity is that wherever you throw the ball, it's going to have a different reaction time to the hitter. If I throw the fastball up and inside, the hitter has to hit it way out front. If I throw it in the middle, they have a little bit more time. If I throw it on the outside, they have quite a bit more time. Like from down and away to up and in the strike zone, there's about a 10% differential in reaction time. So you throw the same pitch, 90 miles an hour, 95, whatever it is, and you throw it up and in, it becomes 100. And 95 down and away becomes 90. And so
would you say that, and I'm trying to break it down more simple, just so, I'm not from the baseball perspective. I played a little bit growing up, but never, at a level that you obviously see day in, day out. Would you say that it would be like very similar to like perceived velocity for the player that's getting the pitch?
Perceived velocity, the way it's used, is a very poor term.
Okay.
Because how do you know what the hitter's perceiving? Right. Like the reality is you can't possibly know what the perceived velocity is until after the hitter swings. And then you can see they were early, therefore they perceive that pitch to be faster.
Okay.
And so that's the true meaning of what perceived velocity is. The way it's used in baseball right now is false. Well, number one, it's not correct, but it's also misleading. It's not a very accurate term.
So how do you measure
effective velocity is more like effectively that pitch when you throw 95 inside, I have to hit it sooner.
Oh, okay.
If you throw it outside, I get a little more time to hit it. So effectively, it's changing speeds. It really isn't, but it's changing my time. Like if I tell you I'm flying into the West Coast, I need you to pick me up at noon. And you're like, okay, well, the plane's going 600 miles an hour. And that's all I give you. You're standing there like, well, where do I go? Like LA or Burbank or San Francisco, or where do I go? Because we don't have a landing point.
So because the distance is different.
Yes. Even though the time is the same as far as the speed of the plane, it's traveling at different points. So when the ball goes inside, it's traveling to an area where I don't have very much time. I got to go. And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when you understand that, like that basic, really simple, basic thing, it puts things in perspective, because you realize that all speed is relative. It all totally depends as to where it's at in the strike zone. And that's important to understand, because that changes the reaction time. Because what are we doing when we're trying to perceive or see a pitch and try to identify it? We need to know what? We need to know how fast is it, right? And where is it going? And that's basically what we need to know. And so if I see a pitch that starts off flat, then I'm pretty sure that it's a fastball when it comes out of the hand. So I'm loading up and I'm expecting fastball. And then all of a sudden it goes like this. It's really a slider. So I perceived that to be a fastball. It turned into a slider, which was much slower. And now I'm fooled on it because I thought it was a fastball. So what we're trying to get when we're looking at pitches is we're trying to figure out how fast is it going and where is it going.
So in that situation, how would you tell a batter to tell the difference between that slider and that fastball?
We have a lot to talk about before we get there.
Okay.
Because
keep that one in mind.
Yeah. The simple answer is good luck with that, because when a pitcher, all of my studies showed that when you throw two pitches and they're right on top of each other, and then the fastball stays going straight and this one moves off and veers off that tunnel, super hard to hit, almost ridiculously hard to hit, like to the point of almost impossible. It's not, but because you can train certain things to get better at it. But when a pitcher keeps a pitch in the same tunnel for at least 18 feet of flight, and we'll get into that, why that's important, but the first 18 feet of flight is crucial to recognizing a pitch. But it only allows you to recognize the direction that the ball's going. So in that first 18 feet, we did massive tests with kids from 10 all the way up to minor league kids. And what we found in the testing was every kid at every level can tell you whether the ball's going up, down, in, or out within 5 to 10 feet out of the hand. And then when the ball starts to get out of your hand by about 18 to 20 feet is when they start to recognize spin. So the 3 S's come in the second third of the flight. So if you break up a pitch down to approximately 54 feet, because they let go of it out in front of home plate, roughly 55 or 54 feet, even less than that with some players. But at 54 feet, that's you divide it into 3, that's 18 feet. So at 18 feet out of the hand, that's a third of the way to the plate. And that the hitter recognizes which way is it going. Is it going up, down, in, or out? And then in the second third of the flight, they start to see these 3 S's, the spin, the shape. So it starts to move right or left or up or down or whatever the case may be. And then they recognize the speed right towards the end of that second third of the flight. So at the 36-foot mark out of the pitcher's hand, if the pitch is 95 or faster, they have to start their swing right now, or they're not going to be on time if it's inside. If it's outside, they still have a little bit of time, but if it's inside, they have to start their swing at 2/3 of the way to the plate.
And that's where you can recognize the spin?
Yeah. Well, you recognize the spin at the beginning of the second 18 feet.
Okay.
And then you see the shape, and then you see the speed. But the speed is difficult because you have to gauge that, and you have to sense what speed that's going. And you kind of have to have something to go with it. There was a famous interview with Greg Maddux, and the guy that was interviewing him, Greg Maddux is like, hitters don't understand speed. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, you see that car over there? And he points to a car in the distance. He goes, how fast is it going? And he goes, never mind. You don't know, and I don't know, because there's no way to know. We don't have anything to measure it off of. So we don't know if it's going 100 or 20 or 50. We don't know. And a hitter doesn't know that much about the speed of a pitch. And so therefore it's easy to manipulate the speed. So the tunnel is one of those things that was designed to mess with hitters' ability to recognize the speed of the pitch. So now if I throw a fastball straight and I throw a curveball with a big hump on it, hitters are going to recognize not only that that's a curveball right out of my hand, because as soon as the ball leaves, the fastball is going straight and the curveball is going to pop over everything. So they'll recognize that immediately because that's direction, right? That's part of the direction. And they'll recognize it as a curveball because they've seen it before and they know that that's what curveball looks like. So automatically they know, A, it's not a fastball, so it's slower. B, it's a curveball most likely. So therefore it's going to be in that 70 to 80 speed range. And so I already know 2 things about it, right? But I also know if it follows normal history that it's going to move in a certain way. So I also know where it's going to end up. So your recognition skills it's easy when the pitcher throws fastball over there and slider over here and curveball over there and changeup over here, and he makes it easy for you. You get to recognize every pitch right out of the hand. Now you still have to train a little bit to be good at it, but you have a head start because you can recognize all those pitches. When a pitcher starts to throw pitches in a tunnel, now it starts to get extremely difficult. See, we tested kids with what do you see and when do you see it? And what we found was, yes, every kid saw spin, every kid that we tested. But there was this weird delay. And when we started to ask them what kind of pitch it was, because we had them in a hitting stance and the pitch would show up and it would only go a certain distance and then stop, right? Hit a net. So they had to load, take in that info, and you'd actually see them moving away if it was a fastball in, or you'd see them move like this if it was a fastball out over the plate. Yeah. So you could tell that they could tell where that pitch was heading.
Okay.
But they would load up and they would recognize a certain amount of the pitch. And every kid could see speed. or they could see direction in that first third. In the second third, when the second third started to happen, was when they could see spin. But here's the rub. If the spin was a pitch like a slider that was inside the fastball tunnel, guess what? They didn't recognize it. At least not nearly as early and not nearly as well, because they were expecting fastball. The initial line of the pitch said fastball. They were hunting fastball. They always think fastball. So here comes a fastball. Oh, no, it's not. That's a slider. So it's super effective pitch because it fools you.
Yeah, right. Would it make a difference if, like the Cleveland Guardians, they're using this technique where they're kind of trying to hide the pitch with the glove up on top, and then they're releasing it at the last second? Would that affect what batters are seeing, and like
for a minute
delay in the efficiency?
It's not going to work in the long run. It would work in the short run. It would work in at periods, and against certain hitters, it might work forever. But and this is something that we probably should cover right away. It depends on whether it's a white belt hitter or a black belt hitter. Mm-hmm. To a white belt hitter, that kind of stuff would work very well, because they're not trained to recognize pitches, and so any weirdness is going to be very hard for them.
What about in the MLB level?
Well, I would say that most MLB hitters, I've never seen one that's at a black belt level, because I haven't seen anyone that is utilizing game plans the way that I would recommend. I mean, Carlos Pena was very close for a period of time in 2009. And there are hitters that stumble in and out of amazing times, but when you break down why they're having success, they're not hitting difficult pitches. They're hitting the easier combinations of pitches. To understand that, we'll probably need to have a language. Think of all pitches as ones, twos, threes, or fours. Okay. So ones are fastballs, but they're inside. So I have to hit them further out front. So that's the fastest pitch, is a one. Okay. So a two is a fastball still, but it's away or down or both. And so I have more time to react to it. Threes are hard off speed, like hard cutters, sliders, splits, some hard splits. And then fours are soft off speed. Typically that's a loopy curveball for Major League Baseball. In softball, it's a changeup. And in baseball, some changeups are fours. So the basic hitter in the big leagues has one mindset. They go to the plate and they expect to get a two, because about 65% of all pitches are twos and threes, hard off speed and fastballs away. Okay. So they gear their swings towards that. And when you see certain hitters going off, it's because they're seeing a lot of twos and threes. And so the two comes into the zone here, and then the threes show up a little bit further out in front. And so if you understand how that works and you throw a lot of twos and threes, you're throwing right into the barrel, and you probably don't even know it. Most pitchers don't have any idea why they're getting lit up. But a lot of it is just because you're throwing pitches directly into the path of the bat. And I don't want to take anything away from hitters. It's not like they're not doing anything, but I call it accidental contact, because basically when you throw a pitch that's heading right towards the bat, a robot could literally just swing the bat, and most big league pitchers can't miss the robot's bat. If the robot's bat swung at only strikes and it entered the zone at a certain speed that was geared to that particular pitcher, there would be very few pitchers in the big leagues that, if they just did their normal thing, not knowing it's a robot, and just threw pitches, every time it was in the strike zone, the robot bat would swing. There would be way more contact than you could possibly imagine. And I think a lot of people would say that's crazy. But what I'm saying is that the barrel is heading in a certain direction, where a lot of pitches are being on purpose being thrown to. They don't know that that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. So the average hitter in the big leagues, from my perspective, is a green belt, somewhere in that range, like medium in the middle.
Is there anyone you've considered that has a black belt? Like, do you have an example?
No, because I haven't seen anyone yet that's hitting more homers than strikeouts. Like the Oklahoma team one year hit more home runs than they had strikeouts. And they led the nation in home runs by a lot. Like the number 2 team that year going into the World Series was UCLA. They hit 72 homers. Yeah. Oklahoma hit 162.
Wow.
UCLA hit 320 as a team, which is outstanding.
Yeah.
Oklahoma hit 420. 25% higher in batting average. And they hit more home runs than they had strikeouts. And UCLA had 2.5 homers or 2.5 strikeouts for every homer. And the average big leaguer has about 5.5 strikeouts for every homer. So when I see someone inching towards hitting a homer for every strikeout, or I see someone hitting 420 instead of 320, then I'm going to start thinking that they've got stuff figured out. And I've studied almost everybody that is giving, serious numbers a run. And what I keep finding is the same thing over and over and over again. When the 2s and 3s dry up, their production dries up.
Is that what you notice with like Aaron Judge or Ohtani, some of the bigger names, that most of their homers are still coming off of 2s and 3s?
Yes. Now, any hitter, especially superstar hitters with great amounts of talent, can hit any pitch at any time. But there's a default mode, that most hitters go into. And if you listen to them, what do they say? I want to keep it simple. I want to let the ball fly. I want to keep my hands inside the ball. I want to go the other way with the fastball. And so what they're basically saying is, I'm gearing for a 2. I need to get a 2. And so when pitchers accommodate that and throw a lot of fastballs away, they're going to be right on time for that. It doesn't mean they're going to hit it, but they're going to be on time for it. So in essence, they've made the timing part of hitting easier for the hitter, because they're throwing 2 out of 3 pitches are in the same speed range that would run into that barrel. So it's unbelievable that that's happening, but it is.
So then why wouldn't a pitcher just throw more 1 and 4s, like both inside and a curveball or changeup?
That's a very good question that I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for a long time. And there's a lot of reasons. Analytics has taken over the sport, and it's all result oriented. So when you look at a pitcher or you look at a group of pitches, 1 million pitches or 10 million pitches, and you see that they have a certain amount of success in a certain area at a certain speed, and you get X amount of ground balls as a result, they focus their attention around that. Like, in the long run, we're going to get X amount of ground balls. They're going to score X amount of runs on us if we keep the ball in this area. And so they take the timing portion. There's no real thought process behind that.
So if we focus just on, like, let's say strikeouts,
mm-hmm.
would we expect the 1 and 4s to have higher strikeout rates?
Yes.
And is that supported by data?
Of course. It's massively supported by data. In fact, there was a study being done right now at Biola University, and they finished the first couple of phases. And what they found in phase 1, which was the same test that I did after we got done with our experiment, with our 24 weeks of simulated at bats, it basically testing the test results, because we tested kids and then we put the test to a test, like doing these simulated at bats.
Right.
And what we found out was staggering, but also it led me to start studying MLB, because I realized about a quarter of the way through this that this is amazingly important, because it's very easy to guess what's going to happen every night of the week. So we had 5 kids on Monday and then a different 5 on Tuesday, all the way through Friday. So 25 different kids. and they were all good high school players to average high school players during this test, with a couple of junior college and I think 2 minor league kids.
Okay.
And they were so they were really good players down to average high school players. And what happened in those was astounding, because we would have the same pitcher type 5 nights in a row. In other words, like week 1 was fastball away, curveball away, 2-pitch pitcher. And fastball away, curveball away would fool them for a little while. But then as soon as they would start to get comfortable with it, third, fourth, fifth time through the order, they would start to make adjustments. And that pitcher would get ripped all through the week, right? Just after a little while.
And that was part of your test.
Yeah. Because we were testing tunnels to see if tunnels actually work. We were testing speed differentials to see if that really worked. And the speed differential was a big factor. But when the two things came together, which was we started tunneling pitches and then they would split apart, and then we had speed differentials, then the hard hit balls went through the floor. There was just one night we had 3 hard hit balls and 118 at bats. And the pitcher was throwing fastball in, slider away, changeup down and in. And it was nightmarish to try to figure out which was which, because they were all tunneling. So that was the study for the last week. And at that point, I went to Inside Edge, which was the only company that was doing data for major league pitches. And they had about 5 million pitches in their database, but not all of them had speed. So we took the ones that had speed, which was about 360,000, I think, which is over a half a season for Major League Baseball, right? That's a lot of pitches.
Yeah.
And they taught the computer to read the effective velocity instead of just the velocity. So 95 down and away, they attached 90 to that pitch. And if it was 95 but up and in, they would attach 100 to that pitch. And when you attach the right location adjustments, there was this weird thing that happens, and it's super predictable. And that is that all the statistics, the hard hit ball, batting average, home run percentage, we used also ground ball percentage because it's an amazing stat for understanding timing, and swing and miss, because when you're on time, you don't swing and miss. When you're off time, you see the swing and miss get bigger and bigger. And so that's why 1 and 4s work, because when you have a big speed differential and they can't see it ahead of time, there's a lot of swings and misses. So what we found in this study in 2004 was that all of the pitch data, when you looked at it through the EV lens, which is the EV miles per hour attached to it, every statistic peaked at one exact moment. At 90 EV miles an hour, home runs were the highest, batting average was the highest, hard hit ball was the highest, swing and miss percentage was the lowest, and it peaked at that 1 mile per hour.
Yeah.
And 3 miles an hour on either side of it, all the stats fell off. Like they were, there was a 6 mile an hour speed range where all the stats were pretty high, but then they just fell off. It was a dramatic drop off after that. And the reason for that is because hitters are drawn like a moth to light, to speed. And they get comfortable with the idea that fastball is 95 miles an hour, but it's away. And when it's down and away, it's 90. And so when that slider is 85, but it's up and in, it's 90. When that 88 mile an hour slider is middle in, it's 90. When that, you just keep going down the list, all these pitch types, when they would go to different areas, they became 90. And what 90 equals is the barrel comes into the zone and it starts hitting the faster pitches back here. Right. So all of these different speeds at all these different locations would run into one bat path. So that's what 90 miles an hour, 90 EV miles an hour equals, is the timing of the barrel making it all the way through the zone and running into all these different combinations of pitches. So what was proven in that initial study was all statistics peak at one point. And there's about a 6 mile an hour range of speed where they kill it. And then outside of that 6 miles an hour, they start to struggle. And so Biola reproduced that, but using today's data. And the first part of that is completed, and it's shown exactly the same thing. Only now it's 92.5 EV miles an hour instead of 90, because the pitch speeds have gone up since we did that.
Between 90 to 96, is that the EV highest?
Well, basically that speed range, the way it works is if the pitcher throws 95, my brain says 95, everything on the scouting report says 95, but in reality, because I'm so used to hitting 95 away, it's really 92.5. Because middle away 95 is about 92.5. And so that speed gets hit the hardest, and it always gets hit the hardest.
So like a pitcher who, let's say, has the capability of throwing a fastball in any direction, and he can vary his speed from, let's say, 95 and 85. Would there be, because that speed component is what throws people off, I'm assuming, because you said, at 36 feet mark, that's where we start to judge the speed. Would that be an effective strategy for a pitcher to vary their speed from, let's say, 80 to 100?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the primary factors behind effective velocity, which is, there's just some basic rules. You should create 6 mile an hour speed differentials between all your pitches. So then you would miss the robot bat instead of throwing into the robot bat. But if you're not paying attention to EV miles per hour and you're just throwing 100 with a 94 mile an hour slider, and you mix up you throw the fastball away and the slider kind of, middle, all of a sudden those two pitches are exactly the same speed and the hitter doesn't even know it, or the pitcher doesn't even know it. So if you were to write a book on how do you get hitters out from an EV perspective, first and foremost is you throw a lot of pitches in tunnels because it's hard to recognize it. Versus, right, if I've got two pitches coming out of a tunnel and one is fast and one is slow, or one is medium, but I don't see it for a long time, just like hiding it behind the glove, I don't see it until you actually throw it. That's why this won't work for any length of time, because eventually you have to throw it. And when you throw it, they're trained to pick it up at this point, unless you're doing this, and then you're not going to throw it very hard. So that would defeat the purpose. So yes, it would be effective in the short run, but it would not be effective in the long run. Not against black belt hitters.
Because the speed would be taken away. Because you're
if you were doing it in a way that disrupted your mechanics, but let's just say that you're doing it in a way where you're trying to keep the ball hidden for as long as physically possible. Does that help? Of course. Is it the end all? No, because eventually you have to get to here and let go of it. And that's where most hitters will start to pick it up. That's why all these weird arm angles and, submarine pitchers and all that come into play, is that it's weird and different. And it takes a minute to get comfortable with. It also is one of the reasons where we get lost, because pitchers are like, oh, well, then if I vary my arm angle, then that's going to be harder for hitters. And the answer is no. Not to advanced hitters, it's not, because they're going to recognize that you throw one pitch out of this slot and one pitch out of that slot, and it'll only be a brief moment for them to figure that out. They'll figure that out on some level, whether it's conscious or subconscious. They'll figure that out.
It might work in the short term, you're saying.
Yeah. So the state of baseball right now is that there's some simple things that are working, and nobody's going to change it, right? Because as long as it's working, why would you change it? And I agree, actually, that it doesn't make any sense to change. And one of those things is we call it a freeze pitch. If you throw a fastball here and then you throw a curveball, it's going to be outside of what you would expect to see, and both in speed and in like, oh my God, that looks like it's going over my head. but it's a loopy 70-mile-an-hour curveball.
That's a speed variation.
Right. So it's a big speed variation, but it's also a weird look out of my hand. And so hitters tend to take it the first time, maybe even the second time. But after a little bit, they start to recognize that that's a thing. And then they start to make adjustments to that. So when you think about that, we termed it a freeze pitch because we had 3 types of pitches, 4 actually. There's a strike pitch, which is 2 pitches that share a tunnel, and they have 6 miles an hour between them, and they end up in the strike zone. So a fastball slider, let's just say 95 and 88 or 85, keep it simple. The 95, they look alike, and then the 95 turns into 100, and this 85 turns into 82 because of where it's located. So now there's a huge speed differential, right? 18-mile-an-hour speed differential, but they don't separate until beyond a third of the way to the plate. So that's a very difficult off-speed pitch to recognize and adjust to. The curveball, if I took that same combination and threw the fastball away, and now the slider away, so now the slider looks like this now. It doesn't look like this. It still does look like that, but now I have this visual to make it look different. So you've created a visual that makes the recognition of any other pitch easier when you focus on down and away fastball, which the whole world still is doing. It's amazing, but they're still doing it.
And you're saying they're doing it because of more grounders, more outs, more catches?
That's what they think. Yeah. Careful what you wish for, because they're getting those grounders, but the grounders are harder now because they're more on time.
They're more based on the fact that the team will perform the way they should.
That's what they think, but it's not working.
Okay.
It doesn't work. It has its moments, right? Like in the end, they're going to be right to some degree. Like as long as it's kind of like when you use historical analytics, the only way those analytics are going to help you predict what's going to happen in the future is if the future repeats itself.
Right.
Like we speculate on lands and it does this, and we buy low, and then history doesn't go back up like it's supposed to. We lose money, right? Everything changes. And that's what happens in baseball all the time. That's why the 100-team wins teams, they win 105 games and then they lose in the first round of playoffs because they're banking on the long run stuff happening, and they don't care about timing. They don't have a metric for timing. But timing is literally everything in the sport. And effective velocity is 100% based around timing. And that's why it's so accurate all the time.
And you mentioned metric. So if you were to look at, like, let's say, one metric, what would be the one metric you look at for hitters?
Exit velocity is the number one number by a lot, because in order to be at your maximum exit velocity, you have to do a lot of things correct. You have to have your body timing on time. So you have to be in sync. You have to have good hand-eye coordination because you have to square the ball up. So you have to have good barrel awareness. You have to have your pitch timing has to be really good. So in order for that pitch timing to have to be really good, that means that your game planning is pretty good also. So therefore, you're checking a lot of boxes when you're at maximum exit velocity.
Do you feel like there's a role of visual memory and like pattern recognition when it comes
100%. I think it's all based around that, because there are certain pitches that are almost unhittable. The knuckleball is almost unhittable, even though it's going 60 miles an hour. We touched on that the other day. Yeah. If you could really see it and hit it, of all the pitches, a 65 mile an hour knuckleball, I mean, come on. How hard is that? It's like you're playing catch. Right. And yet no one hits it. And they don't hit it because they don't have any memory of where it's going, because they don't know. They just know that it's, in fact, when I worked with Carlos, we figured out something about one of the best knuckleball pitchers of all time for the Red Sox. And he had this one thing that he did. And it was a certain shape, right? Like he would throw his knuckleball all over the place.
Yeah.
But when he would throw it in one particular area, it would take on a shape, and that shape was recognizable. And so Carlos always hit him really well. He never really like crushed him, but he always would have 3 hard hit balls every night against him, which is basically all that you can control as a hitter is really basic stuff. So we figured out kind of a cheat with him. And R.A. Dickey was another one but his knuckleballs were controlled. He knew where they were going, and he actually created a fastball version that he threw about 80. And then he would throw like a 78 mile an hour cutter slider. And then he would throw one that was more like a curveball. And then he would throw one that would move the opposite direction, like a changeup. So he had total command of where his were going. Right. And no matter what anybody says, that is 100% true.
Yeah.
So we figured out a way to compete against him as well.
And that was on the pattern recognition of the shape coming out.
Yeah. Because he would develop a shape, right, on purpose. But the hitter was thinking, oh, this is going to go all over the place. So whenever it would go all over the place and then dive, they wouldn't recognize that and they wouldn't expect it. But if you expect it, then you see it. If you don't expect it, you expect random, you're looking in the middle, then you see wherever that thing leads you. He's doing it on purpose. Most knuckleballers are throwing it down the middle and just letting it float. He was not. He was changing speeds and changing action on the ball. So that's one of the pitches that's really hard to hit that goes along with that concept. The other one is a cut fastball. You know, when a pitcher throws a cutter like Kenley Jansen for the Dodgers was amazing for a long time. And he literally just threw one pitch. Mariano Rivera threw one pitch.
Yeah.
But Mariano did it differently than Kenley did. Kenley just elevated pitches and just kept it up there. And when you would talk to a hitter, the hitter would say, man, that ball's moving this much. And you look at all the data and it's like, no, it's moving that much. It's moving 2 inches left. But what it's not doing is it's not doing what every other pitch that looks like that goes like this. And it ends up sinking. And so they see that line and they fill in the blank, and this is the blank over here. And then all of a sudden this one stays straight because some cutters don't even move. They just stay straight.
Yeah.
But in the hitter's mind, they're moving this much because they're not doing what's normal. And so that's why a cutter works. One of the biggest reasons why it works. Yeah. And it continues to work if it's used in the right location. Most of them are not.
So you're saying a cutter would work better if it went more inside?
Yes. And it was at maximum speed. Like there's 2 kinds of cutters in today's world. A true cutter is one where you cut the ball off the side of your fingers so it has sideways spin.
Yeah.
So it moves, it takes some speed off of it. The other one is what we called in the early books. We were the first ones to identify what the ball does in space and how it moves, and the whole idea of the seams making the ball run more. We called it sailing. But when you throw a 2-seam fastball, for example, and it has this kind of tilt where the ball's spinning backwards, you're not going to lose any velocity because you got your full fingers behind the ball, but you have it at a slight tilt. And so the seams go on a tilt. So it works like a boogie board fin or an airplane aileron, or whatever you call the tail.
Right.
The air comes over it and it's forced to move in that direction. So a normal fastball would start off and it would look like this and it would sink a little bit. This one starts off like that as well, but because of the angle of the ball, it's going to sail inwards. So if it doesn't lose speed by truly cutting it, then it's going to be a great pitch. But today's guys are throwing cut fastballs that are traditional cutters inside to a lefty, and away they're throwing a fastball, and it's the same reactionary time. They have no idea, and they get crushed, and they can't figure that out. But it's because they're throwing the same speed pitch all night, and they don't recognize it because they don't recognize EV as real.
I feel like there's a lot of gold here already. But if you had, like, from the ground up, if you were going to, let's say you had a father who wanted to train their son to play baseball and eventually go to the big leagues, how would you train them starting at like an age 6 or 7?
Well, first I would get their swing to maximum, because timing also has a lot to do with how good your swing is. If, for example, when the launch angle swing concept came about, it has literally destroyed hitting. I mean, a lot of people would say, "Oh, it's the greatest thing that ever," because all the homers but batting averages are the lowest they've ever been in history. And it's the lowest it's ever been in history because the swing planes are the worst. Their swing is going up in order to try to hit everything at 25 or 30 degrees. And the reality of that is that you've got a ball coming straight at 2 or 3 degrees downward when it's at the top of the zone. And you got a swing plane going up at 15 degrees. There's only one moment in time where they intersect, right? So if you're early or late by a little, you're going to top it or pop it up or foul it back or swing and miss. So that's why strikeouts are through the roof. It's why pop-ups are so prevalent, and it's why weak ground balls are so prevalent, is because of the swing planes.
Would you recommend then going like level, where you're trying to go like at a neutral 0 degrees?
Well, this is a long discussion, but you want to get in the line of the pitch, whatever the line of the pitch is. If the line of the pitch is 2 degrees downward, then you want your swing going 2 degrees upward, because you want to have a head-on collision as long as possible. And then just let the round contact take care of itself.
So if it's middle, you're going to go line up straight.
Yeah.
If it's, let's say, cutting down, then you actually do want to go from bottom to up.
Slightly.
To match it.
Yeah. But what happens, what I found in my studies is when you're flat at the top of the zone and then the pitch is at the bottom of the zone, if you keep your posture correct and you just drop your hands down into the zone to try to get to the barrel, get the barrel to the ball, it kind of finds the line of the pitch automatically. So there's a little bit of woo-woo, or this is a theory that is very difficult to prove. But my observation of it over years and years and years and years and years is, especially with youth players, when you keep the posture and the player has his A swing all the time, or hers, it is amazing what happens to contact. Contact goes through the roof. And you no longer have like crazy foul tips, pop-ups, swings and misses. Like, I'll give you a simple stat in the big leagues. Before this launch angle swing started, I did a study of 2 seasons worth of pitches, fastballs right down the middle. So 2 boxes, middle, and middle up inside the strike zone.
Okay.
In those years, it was the swing and miss and foul tip rate was 31%. In today's game, it's 51%. So 51% of all fastballs thrown right down central, middle, and middle up in the strike zone are fouled off or swung on and missed. That doesn't count the pop-ups, the topped ground balls. It doesn't count any of that. All it counts is the swings and misses and foul tips, and it's 51% of the time. So that's almost doubled since this concept started. Not quite, but close enough to where it's ridiculous. But yet it's the predominant swing in Major League Baseball. And as long as pitchers keep throwing 67% of the pitches that match that bat path, they shouldn't even change, because it's perfect.
Yeah.
So will they adjust when the pitchers adjust? Of course they will. They won't have any choice, but they're going to struggle for a while, because that's going to be a difficult change. So I would say get your swing at max, because that's going to maximize your exit velocity. And again, if any hitter in the big leagues that averages league average 88, 89 average exit velocity, if they went up to 93, batting average would shoot up 100 points. They'd go from 220 to 320. Simple as that.
One more time.
If you could add just 5 miles an hour of exit velocity, your batting average goes up a ridiculous number. And if you go from 93 to like 98, it goes up even higher.
Is
So
that because accuracy increases?
your accuracy, if it depends on your swing plane as to how often you're going to hit it. But when you hit the ball harder, on average, your average exit velocity goes up 5 miles an hour. There is a crazy, and it depends on where you're at as to how much it goes up. Because one of the jumps is like 40 miles an hour, and then it goes like to 80 miles an hour, and then it goes like to 120, then it goes like to 150 miles an hour, or 150 points of added batting average. When you get, I have a cool board or a slide in one of my slide decks that shows exactly what the percentage is. But your slugging percentage and your batting average goes up ridiculous when you add 5 miles an hour.
Wow.
It's crazy. But people are not focused on that, and if they are, they're doing it in ways that aren't ideal, because you still have to keep it under control. A lot of my work, I get people that naysay it will say things like it's totally out of control. You can't be at 100, because our mantra is 100, 100% on time, 100% mechanically efficient, right? But it's not, doesn't mean that you're swinging necessarily at 100% of your effort level. It means that whatever your effort level is that you can control, that's what I want to swing at every time. So when you understand 100, it flips completely the way you think about hitting. We're not trying to just hit it. We're trying to hit it at 100% all the time. And then when I miss it at 85 or 90%. When the average hitter is hitting it, when they max out, their goal is to be at 85 or 90%. They're not trying to be at 100%, the average hitter.
So the mishits are better than or slower.
Exactly. And the whole game is 100% mishits.
Right.
Like if you look at the typical hitter in the big leagues, they're gonna hit their max exit velocity. Let's say it's 120 miles an hour. They'll probably do that twice all year in 600 at bats. And maybe they'll have 3 more that are over 115.
Right.
So total all year, there'll be 5 balls that they hit at 95% of their max. I did a breakdown of Judge, and I don't want to say what it is exactly, but
well, we want to hear it.
It's so, well, I don't want to misquote it because I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But he hadn't hit a ball at 122 because his max is 122, but he hadn't hit one until this year. Like it was 7 years between the first one he hit at 122 and this one. And when I did a study of how many balls did he hit at 95% of his max, I think it was 2%.
Wow.
Of the balls put in play was at 95%. And at 90%, it was something ridiculously low also. So he's hitting balls at 80, 75, 80% of his max. But because of his strength level, he's mishitting the ball at what everybody else calls a hard hit ball.
Right.
Because that's 95, which is 77% of his max.
That reminds me of like the golf philosophy. If you can make your bad shots less worse, then you're going to do fine.
Yeah. That's 100% of what golfers think is they're trying to get to a point where, like, if this is my absolute best shot and this is my worst swing or contact or however you want to put it, I'm terrible as a golfer. Like your worst has to be so close to your best that you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
And that's when someone goes on the tour.
Yeah.
And in my world, I was a golf pro after I got out of pro baseball for a while.
Oh, no way.
When I spent time in the golf world, it made me start looking at things more precisely because golf is precise. You don't have very much margin for error. You know, 1 degree off at 200 yards and you're 20 yards right or left. And you just have to be so close to perfect all the time with everything. And so after I got out of baseball, I started thinking in those terms more. Yeah. And so the more precise you become, the better your mishits get. And then the whole game is about mishits. You almost never hit it perfect. Almost never.
I mean, not in baseball.
Yeah.
or golf either. Always a little bit of half.
Jack Nicklaus said that he hit 6 perfect shots in a round of 69. So when he broke par he would hit about 6 shots that he said was his idea of perfect. All the rest were mishits.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of degree of miss. That's what baseball hitting is.
Right.
How good are you when you miss it? How good are your misses? Simple as that. And so when you recognize it better, you're closer to being on time all the time. And so what Oklahoma's doing that's different than everybody else, it's starting to change now. There was some parity this year because I'd worked with some other teams. But the basic thing that they did that was different than everybody else was that they started at 100% instead of trying to hit the ball at, trying to be at a place where I can adjust my swing, because the average person is waiting for the pitch to show up and then they're adjusting their swing to match the timing. So if I'm late, I'm going to cheat my swing and pull my hands in and try to hit the ball. And I'm going to be able to do it to some degree, but you're never going to be at 100%.
Right.
The average big leaguer loses 10 miles an hour of exit velocity on up and in fastballs. Some hitters lose 30 miles an hour.
Because of the mechanics?
Right. Because their mechanics are so severely compromised that they just never square the ball up when they pull their hands in to try to hit it. So it's a flawed system right out of the gate. No matter how well you do it, you're going to compromise your swing to some degree or another. So what they're doing that nobody has quite figured out yet is they're hunting pitches in an area where it's basically they know what's coming, because most pitchers are making ridiculously horrible errors in the way that they set up their pitching approach. So when you look at it through an EV lens, the way JT Gasso, who is their hitting coach, he basically said, when you look at it at a pitcher through the EV lens, there's nowhere to hide. Like, we know all the mistakes that you're going to make. And so we can be 100% on time to the pitches that you're throwing, because you're going to throw this pitch at this speed and this pitch at this speed. They're going to look alike, but they're going to be the same reaction time. So I'm going to run into this one here and this one here. Thank you. You created that as a pitcher because of your lack of understanding of how effective velocity works. And so you're cheating a little bit in the sense that you can see those timing errors, but you can also see when they make obvious freeze pitches happen. So you can prepare for that, actually.
That's where that visual memory pattern recognition comes in, right? Because you have the EV philosophy, you know where it's going to go. It helps you figure out the anticipation mechanism you need to actually time up and ball hit. So that's amazing.
And that's the ABC's version.
Right.
The version that Oklahoma's using is a little more advanced because they're pinpointing it down to precision and getting it just the way that you're going to see the game in a game against a certain pitcher. Baseball is doing that to some tiny degree. I hear rumors around, but I know they're not doing it correctly, because you just see the offense go like this all the time. And that doesn't happen when you understand, when you're at a brown belt level, you're going to be 100 a lot more often than everybody else. Like, there's only 4 or 5 guys in all of the big leagues, and there's really 2 standouts that hit the ball really hard, close to their max, like 50 or 60 times. Everybody else is 2 or 3 or 5 or 8.
Well, that's
the whole season.
The whole season.
They're hitting their max exit velocity
or quick swing area. So we're going to do a little game. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and I want you to tell me, in a very quick fashion, rapid fire, the answer that you have on the top of your head. So number 1, Juan Soto or Aaron Judge, who has better pitch recognition?
Juan Soto.
And number 2, who, and this is what you hinted on, who right now this season has the best command over their hitting?
Well, Aaron Judge at the moment, but it's primarily because pitchers are hitting his bat. As soon as they stop, you see him go into massive slumps.
Credit.
I mean, his swing design and his approach have big flaws that they are pitcher dependent.
Okay. Number 3, worst fastball command in the league.
I don't know. There was a pitcher that I did a little bit of work with the Diamondbacks 2 years ago, Justin Martinez, but he gained some of that back. Like he was all over the place. There's a lot of pitchers that are all over the place. Okay. Trevor Bauer, I worked with for a while, and he was all over the place. He got better later, but there's a lot of players like that because the focus around the world is throw it as hard as you can. Right. And there's, we'll learn how to control it later.
Number 4, most overrated stat in baseball, especially for hitting.
Anything that has runs attached to it. Or there's a lot of stats that if they're not timing based, throw them out the window because history has to repeat itself for them to be correct. Otherwise, why are the most analytic teams also the ones trading the most players around every year? I mean, why would you trade a player if you really understand it? Why don't you just fix them? When you got him for a reason, you brought him into the fold, and then he stopped producing the way you wanted him to produce, and now you're going to trade away because he's no longer producing at the level you want. Why don't you just fix him? And the answer is they don't understand how those numbers work. That's the issue with that. That's a long that would be a whole discussion.
Right. And number 5, your best swing drill that you have for visual pitch recognition.
Almost all of my drills are based on to some degree or another around recognizing pitches. But
most favorite drill that you feel like achieves the highest degree of efficiency for an average or even an elite batter? If you had to pick one, and I know that's a tough question.
That's impossible. Because I'm trying to figure out what's the most important thing at level 1. And we're talking pitch recognition.
Pitch recognition.
Well, the way the world went, and I have this in my patent. So a lot of people out there are breaking my patent. But anything that has to do with recognizing planes, like throwing a fastball and then throwing a slider and throwing a curveball, kind of recognition. So what I would say would help major leaguers the most, the batting practice pitcher, instead of standing on a platform throwing downhill, would be to get on a seated soft toss and throwing at an angle that's more game-like. So when I throw it at the top of the zone, it's 0 to 2 degrees. And because from up here, everything's going down at 12 degrees or whatever. And so their swings are all in line with that. So I would say first and foremost, get seated overhand soft toss to throw the pitches flat, but then mix the pitch types where you throw it flat, a fastball, and then you throw a slider, and then you throw a curveball, from 25 or 30 feet, you can recreate the same look that you're going to get out of the hand from way back. So we do a lot of small ball work where you have these small foam balls that are golf ball size. So when you're at 18 feet, when I throw this, you don't see it that great out of my hand. Like you don't see the baseball out of the hand very well until it gets to a certain distance because it's so small in the hand relative all the way back there. So as you get closer, this is about the same size that you would use at 18 feet, the same visual amount of information that you would gather from a baseball all the way back there. It's kind of the idea that ball in the middle too, that they have.
So by having the ball smaller and closer, are you forcing the brain to recognize the pitch quicker?
Yeah. Well, yeah, not quicker, same. If you don't want it to be necessarily quicker, although you can do that, which I think is good every once in a while. But realistically, you want it to be the same as what they're reacting in game time. So if I'm throwing 100 miles an hour, that's 0.383 seconds, I think. And so I want to recreate a pitch at 100 miles an hour at 18 feet. Then I have to do the math to figure out what the speed that I have to throw this thing at in order to recreate that.
And is someone hitting that, or are they just recognizing the pitch?
No, they're hitting it. They're hitting it with a small diameter bat, in fact.
Okay, small ball and small bat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we started that kind of concept. Actually, we didn't start it. There was an old school bunch of people have done that in the past, where they had little rods that you would hit. But we were the first ones to add the overload, underload, 2 different weights, and to mix it up with actual game speeds and at game movements. Because with foam, it's amazing how close you can get to a big league slider, what it looks like. So like the Atlanta Braves use small balls. When I worked with Carlos, he loved them because we could recreate. It's not exactly the same, obviously. It's stupid to think so. But how do you get movement when you're just doing underhand soft toss or hitting off the tee, or some BP pitcher throwing 65 miles an hour? You're not going to get that same kind of movement, right?
Yeah.
But with the small balls, you can create same angle from here. You know, if you got a pitcher throwing way out here, I can create the same angle that you're going to get in the games. We did a test all the way back in 2010 with the Penn State University baseball team. And their hitting coach, Will Hoover, at the time, he was really, really picking my brain all the time. And one of the things that they bought into was exit velocity. So they went out and bought a radar gun immediately that would do exit velocity. They didn't exist back then except for one company. And they started recreating pitch speeds, and then they started using these. And they had a pretty amazing season, actually, because they were about 15% ahead of their competition in exit velocity, average exit velocity every day, because they were measuring it. Pretty amazing. Like the number 1 team in the country, they were 20% higher than them in a weekend series. And that's awesome to be able to talk about that. They hit, it was the first year of the BB Core bats. So all the homers all across the country just, were down. But theirs actually stayed fairly high. And I think they hit a pretty low number, but it was pretty up there around the country because they were 100. They were being on time more often than everybody else. So that's a whole philosophy, and there's a lot of nuance to that. But in the end, it's all skills. It's all individual skills. Like if you came to me and said, I want to be a black belt in Taekwondo, I could tell you how to do it, right? I mean, I couldn't, but the groups could.
I actually do have a black belt.
Do you?
Yeah. Okinawa. Right. Yeah.
So you could tell me all about it, but I couldn't do it tomorrow, right? I can't just become a black belt. There's a million layers that I have to add on to in order to get to that point. And that's what this is like.
So if, let's say I know when people hear this, there's going to be a lot of people who want to get to that black belt level. So how do they reach out to you? How do you, what's the best way that they can contact you to get in touch and get something set up so that you can help them reach that level?
They can reach out to me on X at EV Perry Husband, on what my website is. We've got a couple of them. We haven't really launched the evsoftball.com yet.
Okay.
We're getting ready to launch that.
Your old website?
It's out there, but it's effectivevelocity.com.
Okay. So I'll link down below effectivevelocity.com, and I'll link your X profile too, so they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
And then, you guys can message me too, and I will link you guys up, because I think you have a wealth of knowledge, and it's a combination of theory plus practicality, which is exactly what you need to make improvements in the game.
Yeah. And it all started theory, but the one thing I would tell you about my studies is literally everything I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you if it's a theory. Everything that we talked about today, except for one thing, is complete and utterly tested. That's the difference between analytics, is they just throw it out there. Like,
Right.
we'll theorize what that means, what those numbers mean, and we'll just try it. Whereas effective velocity is over and over and over again tested. We tested every single aspect, and every year that the numbers back up. There's mountains of data that back up the fact that effective velocity is correct. Like the Biola study showed that 91% of all hard hit balls over 5 years of Major League Baseball are EV inefficient sequences. Meaning, if you were to, how do I say it? Only 9% of the hard hit balls were earned hard hit balls, where pitches were in a tunnel, they had 6 miles an hour, and guys still hit them hard. That's the difference. So there's a huge amount of room for improvement, but we're the only ones that actually ever tested everything. We tested every single element, from the vision stuff, which was rough when we did it, but it's proving out now. I don't know that you could ever 100% prove it, of exactly where you see things, but that's about as close to being theory as there is. But again, I would just point to the scoreboard and say, the people that are buying into this, they're better than most of the people out there. Well, what Oklahoma has done is literally shatter every record in the history of the sport, period.
Yeah.
But they also shattered some myths, like, well, if you're going to hit homers, you have to strike out. No, you don't. And if you're going to hit homers, your batting average has to go down. No, ours went up. We had less strikeouts than homers. We had more homers than strikeouts one year.
Would you say that's still a hitting myth that's alive now?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's become okay to strike out 200 times. Aaron Judge will strike out 150 times probably this year, and it's okay, right? And from my view, okay, I mean, yes, if you look at the whole body of work, of course, you have to, you can't look at that and say that what he's doing isn't amazing. We'll see where it goes. Like, I've done studies of him, and you look at, if you are a right-handed pitcher and you throw league average fastballs, and you take 93 fastballs and you move them inside, and then you throw what would be a tunneled slider and a tunneled curveball and a tunneled changeup. If you look at those numbers over 7 years, he hit, against right-handed pitchers, he hit 195 with 25 homers total over 7 seasons.
Wow.
A $195 and less than 3 homers a year. So all of a sudden, he's not Aaron Judge anymore, when we're talking about EV efficient sequences, but those just aren't happening.
Right.
They will. I mean, you'll see it. That's why he went away in the postseason, because you're starting to get everybody's number 1 and number 2 pitcher during the playoffs. And those pitchers tend to follow my stuff a little bit more. Right. And they're a little more EV efficient. There's no black belts yet.
Yeah.
On the pitching side either.
We're still waiting. You got to coach one up.
When I did work with the Phillies pitching coach, when he first got the job, he goes, okay, I was supposed to call you because Derek Johnson, who was the Reds pitching coach, still is, said that you need to call him. So we talked, and I'm like, there's no black belts yet. He goes, we'll be first. I said, okay, we'll see. So when the first year that they made it to the playoffs, I texted him like immediately after the game, and I didn't expect him to get back to me for, a couple of weeks, with all that stuff going on. And he, within 5 minutes, because what I said was, that was a pretty good brown belt effort. And he gets back to me, black belt, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And so to this day, we banter back and forth about black belts. They're close, though. There's a couple that are close with the Phillies, but I just can't understand why they won't go that next step.
Right.
They won't test for their black belt. They keep sticking at brown.
Well, one day it's going to come.
It's going to happen. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, I appreciate your time. I know you probably have to run. You got some unpacking to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate it. We should do this again.